Friends, good morning. Good morning. I apologize for the late start. I am filling in today for Rachel, who is out sick today. So, welcome. My apologies again. I won't keep you waiting any longer. Our presenter today is Rabbi Abigail Halpern, and I will turn it over now.
Great. Hello. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, host disabled. Can you make it so I can share my screen?
I sure can.
Wonderful. I'm about to share my screen, and we are going to, as soon as I do that, oh, no, it's still not able to, but we're going to look at a Mishnah that you would have, if you were on the Daf Yomi schedule, learned last week. And there we go. Yes, wonderful. And it is about cases of doubt where with the refrain, they will put it aside until Elijah comes. So we're gonna dive in. And the question I want to be focusing on is, when you learn this text, how much do you think that this is a real instruction? And how much is this just a way of saying, we don't know how to deal with this problem at all, actually? That is this saying, we believe that Elijah's coming any minute and he will have the authority to solve this problem? Or is it like, we can't know, just put it away for now? Because I think those have very different valences. Okay, so I'm going to walk us through. I've actually brought you just the Mishnah. So we're going to see only the Mishnah text, because I thought it was juicy enough on its own without the Talmud piece. Okay. So if one said to two people, I robbed you of 100 dinars. That's a unit of money. That's all you need to know for our purposes. But I do not know from which of you I took the money. Or if one said to two people, the father of one of you deposited 100 dinars with me, but I do not know the father of which of you he is, then he gives 100 dinars to this person and 100 dinars to that person. This is because there is no way to determine which of them is entitled to the money, and he admitted his obligation at his own initiative. Okay. So the person in question, let's call this person, so let's call this person Plony. That's the standard rabbinic word for John Doe. So Plony comes forward and Plony says, I stole $100 from you, but I don't know which you it is. Plony says, I know I stole $100. I'm admitting that I stole $100, but I don't remember if I stole $100 from Rachel or Leah. Or the father of either Rachel or Leah left 100 dinars with me that I'm responsible to give back. And then presumably that person died. The father in question died. But I don't know who to give it back to. The claim here is that Plony has to give $200. Because Plony has basically said, I could plausibly owe either one of you $100. And because Plony came forward, that's what he gets for saying it. In the case of two people who deposited money with one person. So let's say Rachel and Leah each give $100 to Plony, and Plony's going to hold on to it for them. Nope, I got the case wrong already. Rachel and Leah each give money to Plony. This one deposited 100 dinars, and that one deposited 200 dinars. So Plony has 300 dinars. One of the people gave him 100, and one of the people gave him 200. That adds up to 300. I'm a rabbi. I didn't do a lot of math, but I think I'm good on that. Okay. Then when they come to collect their deposit, this one says, my deposit was 200 dinars, and that one says my deposit was 200 dinars. So, oh no, Plony only has 300, but now they're saying you owe us collectively 400. And that's different than our first case, right? Because in the first case, Plony himself was saying it. But in the second case, people are coming to Plony and saying, and each person is saying, you owe us $200. One of those people is lying because one of those people is only owed $100. So in that case, the Bailey gives 100 dinars to this one and 100 dinars to that one. And the rest of the money, i.e. the $100 spare, right? There's $300 total. they definitely each own at least $100, so they each get $100 back. And then the rest of the money, so that's the leftover 100, which belongs to one of them, but we don't know who, we don't know who's lying, will be placed in a safe place until Elijah comes and prophetically determines the truth. Okay, that's option one for this case. However, Rabbi Yossi says, if so, what does the swindler lose? I.e., right, then there's zero punishment for lying. That, like, if you can just claim, oh, it's $200 of mine when it was really $100, and then you get your $100 back, easy peasy, right? Best case scenario, you get $200. Worst case scenario, you get $100. And that's not how it should work. He lost nothing by claiming the 100 dinars that belong to another, and he has no incentive to admit the truth. Rather, the entire deposit will be placed in a safe place until Elijah comes. So then he's discouraged from making this lie. Then he doesn't even get his $100 back, right? Because he is in, all the money goes to like pre-Elijah purgatory. You put it in the bank, and the only one who can make that withdrawal is Elijah. And Elijah will know who's lying because Elijah's a prophet. And likewise, we're going to now see a repetition of this kind of case, but it's with objects instead of cash. And likewise, if two people deposited two vessels, one worth 100 dinars and one worth 1,000 dinars, so like one person has this really low quality pot they bought at Marshall's, and the other person has this beautiful Le Creuset pot from their wedding registry, and they both leave these pots with the friend, and then they come back to get the pots from the friend. And this one says the expensive vessel is mine, and that one says the expensive vessel is mine. So they're both like, the Le Creuset pot is mine. What do you do? So option one, the bailee gives the small vessel, the less expensive vessel, to one of them. And then from the proceeds of the sale of the large vessel, so he sells the Le Creuset pot, gives the value of the small vessel to the other. So then they get back what the worst pot was worth. So then they each have the same value, even though one of them is the actual pot and one of them has the money. And the rest of the money is placed in a safe place until Elijah comes. So i.e., they both get back the value of the cheaper pot. In one case, the actual pot, and in the other case, the financial value of the pot. And the difference between the cheaper pot and the more expensive pot, the financial difference, that's put in the bank for Elijah to make the withdrawal. But Rabbi Yossi has the same question. If so, what did the swindler lose? There's no disincentive to lying here. So Rabbi Yossi says the entire deposit, i.e. both vessels, are placed in a safe place until Elijah comes, or presumably, this is an addition here, until one of them admits they were lying. Because maybe there's a disincentive then, and the person will say, well, I would at least rather get my worse quality pot back. Okay. So my question is, I said this a little bit at the beginning, but when you read this text, do you think that when it says, that when Rabbi Yossi says, if we do this, there won't be justice, we have to push off the resolution until Elijah can come and with absolute prophetic knowledge tell us who's right and who's lying? When you read this, do you think this is, what is Elijah doing here, right? This is a legal case. For those of you who've been learning the Daf Yomi, either in the original text, who've been following the emails, or even coming to these classes, you'll have noticed that these are overall, if you want to say that these are texts about God, you have to kind of reach. And like, I could make that argument for you, but these are mostly texts about financial loss, interpersonal harm. It's civil court cases, basically. And then suddenly we have Elijah here, who's this character that the rabbis associate with the Messiah, right? Elijah will come along with the Messiah and will have all of this kind of prophetic, almost magical knowledge to solve all of these halachic problems. And so I want to ask you, and you can either unmute or answer in the chat, which I see has been delightfully active. And I want to know, is your instinct this is just a way of saying we can't resolve it, put it away forever, kind of confiscate it? Or is this a way of the rabbi saying, we believe that there is a real resolution to these disputes, and we believe that it will happen in the future? What are they imagining as the solution to this problem? Claudette, please, hello.
I'm having some difficulties with this because the one that is dishonest is gaining, and the one that is honest that should be benefiting is not benefiting. So my trouble is, how do you resolve something with the person who's feel hurt for not benefiting from what he should?
Great. So this text is more focused on making sure the liar gets punished than, I would say, so there's two teams in this, right? There's what we might call the Tanakama, the anonymous voice of the Mishnah, and there's Rabbi Yossi, and they disagree about what to do. The Tanakama says everyone gets back at least what they put in. And then the liar, and then that way, no. Everyone gets at least some minimum, right? We don't want to be punishing people too much. But the risk of that is that the liar benefits. And Rabbi Yossi is saying, no, we really don't want to risk the liar benefiting. And so therefore, we are going to punish even the person who isn't lying. And I think those are two really different perspectives on how do we get to justice. And are we more focused on sort of achieving perfect truth and punishing the person who has acted wrongly? Or are we more focused on just muddling along the best we can? And I think Elijah here comes in part because we're striving for this like imagined perfect world, right? This is a vision of like, oh, in this like messianic world, everyone gets perfect justice. And that's why this like kind of confiscate everything until Elijah comes feels so messianic. And then it's trying to get to this like perfection. Okay, Susan, and then I'm going to look at the chat. And vanished. Okay, let's see where Susan went on my screen. Forgive me. Okay, I'm skimming the chat. Yes, I wonder if Lynn is saying, I wonder if deferring decisions to Elijah is in part a recognition that the rabbinical courts were not just limited by uncertainty about the substance, but also that they held less power than civil courts. Right. In different parts of Jewish history, rabbinical courts had more or less power. In some times and places, they had a lot of power because basically whatever the local government was would say all Jewish people just navigate all your interpersonal and legal problems through the rabbinic courts. And in some places, like if you live in the US today, like you could theoretically go to a rabbinic court, but like you could also just take the guy to small claims court. And that has more enforcement power. Andrew, I suspect that they're imagining that some future robbers will take it up and solve it. I love that, right? Maybe maybe Elijah isn't necessarily Elijah. It's just like, that's a later problem. We're going to put that off. Kim is saying, I think the dishonest person should be punished. Right. Are we focusing on making sure the dishonest person suffers and experiences a consequence? Or are we focusing on just doing the best we can? Put a pin in it, put it in a parking lot, Robert is saying. Yes, I love all of those pedagogy terms of art. Okay, Susan, I see your hand again. I would love to hear from you.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't able to unmute. I wasn't
I'm
permitted
sorry
to
about
unmute.
that.
I feel like this is an unsatisfactory resolution. Of course, this is the 21st century. I feel like it's an unsatisfactory resolution that I guess solves things for that time, the time in which it's happening, because the honest person is getting cheated and the other person's going unpunished. He's getting back what he put in. So that is my opinion.
Great. Yeah, the whole thing here is so unsatisfying, right? There are pieces of Mishnah and Talmud that we could learn where we would say, that's such a clever resolution of this problem. Or, wow, this is a really justice-focused, creative solution. This one feels unsatisfying. No matter what you do, in some way, either the liar experiences no consequences, or the person who has done nothing wrong experiences a consequence that they don't deserve. Philip's saying this is a disincentive for an honest person to deposit anything with anyone else, right? If we don't, and this is, I think, steps back as this sense of, can we trust each other? You need to have a deep society of trust, right? For example, like if I say to Claudette, like, here's my watch, I want you to keep an eye on it. And then if I come back and Claudette says, you didn't leave your watch with me, or another person also says that was my watch, I'm not gonna be letting people keep an eye on my watch anytime soon. Yeah, Aaron, the Bailey is also at fault for not knowing who deposited the money. That's a big theme in the Talmudic responses to this Mishnah, right? That it is a problem, right? Who's really messed up here? Obviously, the liar has done something wrong. But why can't the person, like, 2 people gave you something? It's only 2 people. And you really can't remember who gave you the really expensive pot and who gave you the crappy pot? Like, please. Okay, Claudette, I see your hand, but I want us to see one more text. Will you forgive me if we move forward? Okay, so I want us to take a look at this piece from the social activist and organizer Adrienne Marie Brown. This is from their book Emergent Strategy, which is about how do we build stronger communities, essentially. And I think this is actually a text that speaks really interestingly to our Mishnah. So Brown says, we are in an imagination battle. Imagination has people thinking they can go from being poor to a millionaire as part of a shared American dream. Imagination gives us borders, gives us superiority, gives us race as an indicator of capability. I often feel I'm trapped inside someone else's imagination, and I must engage my own imagination to break free. All of this imagining and the poverty of our current system is heightened because of scarcity economics. There isn't enough, so we need to hoard, enclose, divide, fence up, and prioritize resources and people. We have to imagine beyond those fears. We have to ideate, imagine, and conceive together. And I think this is really imagining a world where we don't need to say, wait until Elijah comes and Elijah will know how to execute justice. This is, right, what does it look like to look at the cases in our Mishnah and think about how do we create messianic times now? How do we get to real justice? And of course, this is a very large tractate of Talmud. So these cases get discussed quite at length, and I have half an hour, so I can't do justice to the rabbinic discussion. But I do want to really emphasize that I think the addition of Elijah here is bringing in an invitation to us to say, these are all imperfect solutions. What if we imagine beyond? What if we can imagine, like, what if we had this like magical solution where we could know truth and justice? And then how do we try to get as close to that as we can in the real world? Yeah, Claudette.
I'm thinking maybe the rabbis is sending another message to us that life is not fair and we need to walk knowing that it doesn't always come out the way we expected it to.
Sometimes you think you've left your pot with your neighbor and it's gonna be fine, but like, life is hard, bud. And I think different people in this Zoom and different rabbis in this text have really different responses to that idea, right? I think some of the opinions of this Mishnah are kind of okay with that. And some are really saying, I refuse to live in that world. And I think we're all different on that front, right? Like I know for me, I tend to be very upset when I don't think justice is being done. And I have loved ones who are like, you have to understand that the world is imperfect. And that like getting that upset about it is not going to fix anything. And we need all of these different kinds of people in the world, right? Because otherwise, some people we would all either be worked up all the time or nobody would be pushing at all. Andrew, are the rabbis talking about how we get to Messianic times, or is this like small claims court? Great. So we do see this phrase, put it aside until Elijah comes, about other kinds of financial situations. And because in some ways it's minor, it's about just like a financial deposit, it's maybe okay to say, okay, we'll solve it imperfectly and or wait. But if there are things that are higher stakes, right? Someone has an immediate need, someone has been physically harmed, someone needs money to eat. Those aren't cases where the rabbis say, oh, we'll just wait till Elijah comes. Some things are urgent. Okay. Yes, I'm seeing wonderful discussion further in the chat as well. Right, it's this weird intersection of the kind of mundane small claims court and the invocation of messianic times. And that to me feels like a very joyful part of the Talmud to me, that you can be in a discussion about like lowish stakes small claims court, and then suddenly be thinking about, what if we need the Messiah to resolve this dispute? And in our own world, we often really treat civil legal matters and Jewish ritual like they're totally distinct from each other. Right? That I imagine for those of you who go to synagogue and have a rabbi, you might say, Rabbi, I have a question about God. I have a question about prayer. I have a question about keeping kosher. But you wouldn't say, I have a question about this $100 I lent to my neighbor and they kept saying they'd give it back, but they're kind of not. But the rabbis of the Talmud are imagining those things all being integrated. And so I want to close by thinking about in what ways thinking about even things that we might think of as relatively lower stakes or not religiously inflected can be actually really sacred. And that what parts of our lives are the things we're pushing out, and what parts of our lives are we imagining into what can be spiritual, what can be important. Great. And I've been asked to share the source sheet in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Give me one moment. Oh. Share it for everyone to see. And that's the source sheet if you would like to take it with you. Thank you all so much for learning with me.
Thank you, Rabbi Halpern. Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. We will see you again next week at this time. Take care, everybody.